Hi everyone, I wanted to share a couple book recommendations with you tonight when you're thinking about talking to your kids about sex. And again, this is a topic that we do have to talk to our kids early about. It is our job as parents to talk to our kids about this. It's not the church's job, it's not the school's job, it's not their friend's job. It's our job as parents. God has entrusted us with these precious gifts, and we need to train them up in God's word and help them to understand that this topic, sex, that it's not a nasty topic, it's not a dirty topic, that God designed sex, God created sex, and it is beautiful and holy within marriage. But along with sex, of course, kids, there's just so much, and we don't need to be explaining all the things to our kids when they're, little tiny tykes, but we do need to build upon this topic, and we do need to start early with age appropriate conversations, with our kids. So our oldest, we have 3 boys, and our oldest just turned 9, and when Josiah was like two and a half, I just began to start, thinking about, how we would address these topics in our home, and so I was listening to Focus on the Family. It was a really great resource for, different topics that, and addressing different topics from a godly perspective, a biblical perspective. And they recommended this book series, and the book series that I want to show you, I'm going to open the book here. So it's called Learning About Sex, and there are several different books in the series. And the first book I have here is Why Are Boys and Girls Different? And you can see at the bottom of this book, this is the boys version, and it's for ages 3 to 5. So that is when I first introduced this book to all of our boys. And I just read these books periodically. I would just, when they're like in that particular age, just would read them periodically. There would be different conversations, there may be different questions at different times, that kind of a thing. So inside the book, though, the Learning About Sex, there are 6 different books in this series. So book number 1 is Why Boys and Girls Are Different. Book number 2 is Where Do Babies Come From? And I have that one out here too. You can see this one is for boys ages 6 through 8. And then book number 3 is How You Are Changing. Book number 4 is Sex and the New You. Book number 5 is Love, Sex, and God. And book number 6 is How to Talk Confidently with Your Child About Sex. So all important topics that we as parents know that we want to cover, but it's hard sometimes to know, how much do you say, how do you say it, all of those things. This is a really great resource, a great series of books that I think we can definitely use kind of in our toolkit to talk to our kids about sex, to talk about these different things. So Why Boys and Girls Are Different, just goes into just explaining. I mean, it shows a picture of a girl's body, of a boy's body, explains the different parts, explains how God made us different. And, I had recommended that other book by Marty Machowski about gender. So if you are able to read that book to your kids, this is really good as a starter series, because then your child already knows what that word gender means, and that God has created us as male and female, that we are different. And then, it just explains in the book, what makes us different as a boy, as a girl, physically speaking. And then the book goes into explain about, God's view of marriage and sex, and how babies are born. Very, very light, nothing, not using, big explicit language or anything like that in this book. But and the other series that I want to show you is the book series that's called God's Design for Sex. And I have books 1 and 2 and 3 in this series. I just have 1 and 2 out right now. But book 1 is ages 3 to 5. And these books in this series are for boys and girls. There's not like a boy specific series and girl specific. And then book 2 is ages 5 to 8. So book 1 is The Story of Me. and book 2 is Before I Was Born. And I will say that both of the books in this series, they are definitely, the language that they use and the pictures and things are a little more detailed, but not, you know, nothing obviously like it's biblical based, it's, you know, it's truth, but just definitely, you know, more language specific and detailed specific than like the other series. So I've kind of used them in conjunction with each other. And again, you know your kids, you know their ages, and explaining those different things, you know, at the right time. But the main thing being that the topic does need to be addressed. We need to take it seriously that we have been entrusted with these gifts, these children. They are God's gifts to us, you know, we are responsible for training them up. It's not anybody else's job but us to talk to them about these things. And kids need to understand, especially Christian kids need to understand, that sex is not dirty. Again, it's not a nasty word. It's sex. God created sex. It is God's good gift, and kids need to understand what that word means, to understand a biblical view of sex and sexuality, and we need to you know, teach them these things early on so that they have a proper and a biblical perspective instead of a skewed perspective of what it is, or, you know, that they have to be, you know, have a shameful view, or, you know, or to feel shame about this topic or talking about this topic. So I think it's so important that the earlier we do it, again, keeping things appropriate, age appropriate, that it kind of takes, you know, that shame away in a lot of ways, hopefully. So check these books out. If you are in the area and you want to see them in person, you're welcome to, you know, to check out, borrow the ones that I have to look at them in person if you're thinking about buying them. But I highly recommend them. And like I said, just get the books, trust God, pray about it. He will give you wisdom, and just read them. Just throw them in there periodically, you know, when, you know, here and there, and just keep bringing up that topic into the light, and just allow healthy conversation and questions from your kids about the topic. All right.